The first thing you should know, embroidery designs are digital files that you plug into your sewing machine and they stitch out. And you can buy them online and in fabric stores, but they're digital pieces of information that you load onto a sewing machine. Most of the embroidery designs that are available are pretty ugly, so I saw an opportunity for innovation to make designs that were more modern looking. The problem is it's difficult to figure out how to do this. There's a lot of learning involved to be able to make embroidery designs, and there's a very steep learning curve. So I was posed with the problem of how to learn my skill before I can launch a business around it. So my question was, how do you acquire a deep level of understanding before you start a business in a niche topic? A lot of people start businesses after working in the field for a while, so they already know the field pretty well. But what do you do if you want to start a business where you have very limited experience? So my solution was, what if you just started blogging about it? And if you wrote a blog, then could this lead to entrepreneurship, and why might this work? As a web developer, I've worked with a lot of different people who have tried to start up online businesses. And, you know, everybody wants to launch an e-commerce site, and the perception is that once you build it, that people will start coming to the site and you'll start making money right away. But the problem is that there are a lot of startup costs involved, monthly fees, and then you have to get traffic to your site. So there is some cost involved with startup, and it can be very disappointing when you don't get the results that you were anticipating. So my question was, why not start generating traffic before launching the online business? So if you were to blog aggressively on your niche topic, you'd learn a lot about the product in the market, you'd start building an audience, you start gaining search engine recognition, and you start establishing your credibility in the field. So with this foundation in place, I thought that launching an online business would be more successful. And these are the reasons why. An entrepreneur needs to know the product in the market. So when you're blogging every single day, you learn a lot about the subject. And when you force yourself to write a blog on a daily basis, you just stay engaged with the topic, and you go out of your way to seek answers to questions and enhance your knowledge of the subject. An entrepreneur needs prospects. So by starting a blog, you start to create a subscriber list, and these customers who are interested in your topic, these followers who are interested in your topic are likely to become good customers. Blogging, when you blog, you start generating a ton of content, and search engines love content. So you'll be more likely to be found if you have a collection of content initially before launching your business. And then when you have that large collection of content, you build your credibility in the industry. So when people go to check you out, they start seeing all of this writing that you've done on this topic, and it gives your credibility, and it demonstrates a deep knowledge of the industry. So what happens when you do this? On the 1st of January in 2013, I decided to blog every day for an entire year about machine embroidery and see what happened. I wrote about all different things. I was constantly trying to think of a new blog topic since I was writing every day. I wrote reviews of fabric stores, inspiration, reports on other blogs, responses to questions posted in social media groups, interviews with experts, project show and tells, how-to, free embroidery designs. I just wrote like crazy. In May of 2013, I had enough knowledge in products to start selling on Etsy, which is a great tool for entrepreneurs because there are very low startup costs. On Etsy, there's no monthly fee. It's just 20 cents to list an item for 3 months. And you have to pay a small transaction fee for each sale. But what's really beneficial for an entrepreneur is that Etsy pays for ads. So you may search for something in Google, and what comes up, this is one of my designs right there that just comes up under a Google search because Etsy's paying for those advertisements. The other benefit is that a lot of people just go to Etsy to shop, so the internal search on Etsy is very powerful. So if you start a blog, it's easier to share that information than if you were pushing products. So like there are a lot of niche Facebook groups this is a Facebook group all on machine embroidery. And so I would show my projects I was working on. People went to the blog and learned about me, and then that became kind of a backdoor marketing technique, and it's free. So blogs are very promotable, but not so much products in these groups. Pinterest is a great marketing tool if you're selling something that's visual in nature. My particular target audience happens to be very avid pinners. And the rules in Pinterest when you're trying to promote yourself is that it's okay to pin your own designs and projects as long as you're pinning other things as well. I have one pin up there that has been repinned like 80 times. And every time it gets repinned, that leads to incoming links to your blog or to your store. So how well did it go? There have been a lot of things that have happened. The blog traffic has increased. This picture right here is kind of funny. This is a British blog that wrote about a design I created, and she made something and was featuring it. And I discovered that people were coming to my site from this site, and so I went and checked it out. So the blog is getting picked up by others' blogs. It's getting picked up by blog feeds. So these are feeds of news that collect news of interesting blogs, and so I've been seeing some incoming links coming from that. The blog has provided credibility, so I was approached by a magazine editor to write an article for the magazine, and they wanted to feature my blog, and seeing that collection of content gave me credibility. I was approached to sell my designs on another site, and I think that the credibility from my blog really helped my case in that. And a lot of the blog visitors are leading to the Etsy store, so it's doing what I expected to do. So this is all very modest, but over time I can see that the sales are increasing, and this is just my Etsy sales graph. So the question is, how can I share this with the students and empower them to become budding entrepreneurs? Well, as a web developer, someone who's making stuff for other people, we generally think about businesses and starting a business, and the first thing we think about is starting a service business where you pay me to make a website. And I've done that before, and that is one way of starting a business. But another way of starting a business is developing your own product. And so I want to share that experience with them and show them how possible this is. I also want to disprove the myth that starting up is expensive. And I also want to convey to them that ideas for business development are great. A lot of people have a lot of great ideas, but what comes when you get success, it comes from being very consistent, and it takes grit to have a business be successful. I plan on sharing some of these ideas in a class called INTM 1600, which is Introduction to Interactive Media. And Joe and Barrett have really helped me figure out how to integrate this into the class. I'm developing a lecture called Self-Employment for using, not just creating interactive media, but using interactive media tools and how we can use them to aid to become self-employed. That's pretty much what I have. I'm happy to take your questions.
Okay, are there questions from the audience for Julia?
Hi, Julia. This is Clark McCain at the Coleman Foundation.
Hi.
Thanks very much for your presentation. We enjoyed it. We appreciate, how you're kind of bringing your lived experience into the classroom. Something that comes to mind that I think you might take a look at is something called the effectuation method, which is that was developed by Professor Sarasvati out of the Darden School at UVA. And her principles really align very closely to what you're trying to do, and they might help you in the classroom kind of articulate, an architecture or a method for students that will make what you're doing, what you're trying to convince them to do, make sense in kind of a larger sense. So that's just something I would suggest that you take a look at. But, it's a very interesting example, a very valid example of bringing your life into the classroom. Are there opportunities through the folks that you've met in your business to bring other practitioners before students so they could, perhaps, get to know some other entrepreneurs that you've run across as you've started to create your business, and give other live examples in the classroom?
Yes, of course. There are a lot of people I admire and haven't really reached out to, but you definitely.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Clark. We have a question from Barrett.
Hi, Julia, it's Barrett.
Hi.
One of the things that I know we talked about, again, thank you for doing this, but one of the things that I think would be nice if you could share real briefly is how you connected the dots from doing what you're doing to start to bring in entrepreneurial skills into the classroom. And, you know, that was a challenge I know we've had during the transition, going from where you are now to where we're trying to do from the Foundation's grant process. So if you could talk to us a little bit about that, what it took to get from where you were before with teaching to now how you're having to look at things a different way, particularly entrepreneurial-wise.
Well, I guess to me it feels a little bit niche-y for such a broad scope of a class. You know, this is Introduction to Interactive Media. You can talk about so much. So to dedicate that bit to, or to dedicate like a couple of weeks to entrepreneurship is difficult. So it's more of a process of working it in to other places. So when you're talking about video and interactive media, bringing in YouTube and building YouTube channels and people that have built businesses that have evolved from, you know, creating a collection of video content. So I think it has to come in different places throughout the class, in a class like that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Warren, you have a question? Warren from Beloit?
Yes. Am I coming through?
Hi.
Yes, you are coming through.
Oh, well, this is a wonderful micro business you have running, and I think that's a great model. I'm here with Rongal Nikora, and he had some questions for you.
So thanks a lot for your presentation, Julia. The question I had was, as an entrepreneur, were you concerned at all that once you started to put your designs up, that they would pretty soon be co-opted by others who were sort of in the same field as you?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a concern. I mean, I read about it a lot in my Facebook group. There are people that steal the digital files and then repost them in their own store. But usually there's such a strong community around people that do this that people get called out pretty quickly. So there are people like me that make the digital files, and there are people that have businesses that do applique and embroidery, and they are actually customers of mine, even though they are business owners too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
And so a lot of them will talk about like a picture of a shirt that they made, and people will copy their ideas and steal pictures. There really actually aren't that many people that make the designs that have a similar kind of aesthetic.
Okay.
There's just a lot of really tacky stuff out there.
Great, thank you. We have a question from DePaul. DePaul? Okay, let's go to a question from Lisa Casper, Finlandia.
Hi, Julie. I really enjoyed your presentation. I was just a little unsure about what your final product was that you were selling, and I just had a question about that. Did you actually sell a template, or did you sell a program, or did you sell actual finished?
It's a digital file. So I kind of breezed past that to get into the meat of the presentation, but you have to use this digitizing software in order to make a digital file, and then you have to convert it to like 7 different or 8 different common formats, so it'll run on different embroidery machines. So what people actually buy is they buy a zip file that contains the design in a whole bunch of different formats and maybe some instructions that go with it.
Okay. Oh, that's
Great.
That's interesting. I like the process that you use with blogging. Something that I still use in my class. Thanks.
Okay. Is there a question from DePaul? Okay. Let's move on. There are several other first-year fellows on the call today. Are there any others who wish to participate or present their experiences similar to what Julia has done so far? Cal Poly, you have a question or a comment?
Hi, yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
This is Mary Glick at Cal Poly. I was intrigued by the idea of bringing the individual craft person, creative person, as an entrepreneur into the mix. I see a lot of students who have their own side businesses where they do this kind of thing. I was just thinking that as part of an interactive media class, this is a great segment, but I wonder if there would be a larger opportunity to teach a class specifically to those students who are makers or crafters on their own, and how to turn that into a business, and if you've thought of that.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, initially I was thinking this would be its own class, but in the time constraints of the Coleman Fellowship, I need to modify an existing class. So that's where I am with it now. But I mean, I have ambitions of working with people that are trying to do a similar thing. There are conferences around this, and it's a huge movement of people that are trying to do this. And there are new conferences like there's the Snap Creativity Conference I've read about, and there are people that are going to these conferences to learn how to do this kind of thing. So I'd love to have a presentation that I could propose to some of these groups to go and speak, or that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Great, great.
Great. And I see a question from Webster.
Oh, it's not much as a question, but I kind of wanted to give an update on what I'm doing. I'm Chris Sageback from Webster University. I'm kind of approaching things and moving in a different direction, and I'm probably going to arrive in the same place that Julia is right now, but currently some of the exercises that we've been doing in class, I have a professional development and animation class and also a comic book creation class. Since the art that we're doing is rather time intensive, I'm concentrating really mainly on getting the students out and actually working with the public. I'll put them in exercise situations, like randomly in the classroom, I'll give them an hour to go sell their work. I need them to start understanding, and putting value on their work, talking to the public, drawing in front of them, essentially innovating on the spot. That's one of the things that innovation and making money is one of the things that I've been stressing with getting my animation majors out into the various places on the campus, finding out what people want, and making money from that. Because a lot of my majors generally are not the social types. So that's one of the things that I'm really trying to break them out of their shell. Actually, Julia's presentation was really awesome, because that's one of the things that I'm going to be moving towards probably this summer with the students, kind of on our own time. What does it take to develop a micro business in the world of animation? Joe was talking about one of the things as a first year person, the things that you run up against that's difficult, which I think is difficult with all of us, but really it's time, having the time to do this. So as summer's coming around, there's going to be a lot more time to really sit down and animate, have the students animate with me and kind of put together a little bit of a business. But yeah, I'm still gathering data on the student experiences, so I'll hopefully write an article at some point for the site.
And then, Chris, you are referring to the time challenges here. but you already have infused entrepreneurship content in your coursework. And so as you go forward into the next year, what is your plan? How does this work out? Because you're right, as a first-year fellow, you're learning to teach entrepreneurship in a sense, or experimenting teaching entrepreneurship. But how does it play out in your sort of life as a faculty member as you develop these course content, and what do you see as what the next step is for you?
Well, I mean, with the development and with the curriculum development, a lot of that I'm just kind of learning on the fly. I mean, what I learned at the institute in Chicago is very, 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 very helpful. But I like, you know, as the way Julia did it, I also want to kind of experience it from operating a business. You know, I need to have firsthand experience. I know what it is to be a freelancer, but not necessarily what it is to be a business owner. So I need to go through those motions next, and then also apply that to next year. I mean, I've already adapted content in those two classes, and I don't know if that made any sense at all. But
it does, because you start with the initial step, and then you build on that experience. And then it's interesting that not only you, but several first-year faculty or fellows are interested in sort of trying their hand in business themselves and being entrepreneurial, and also being able to make money as a entrepreneur. So that's an interesting phenomena that I think is more prevalent this year than any other years that we have seen. So are there any other first-year fellows online who wish to share their ideas or thoughts on this?
This is Matt Crystal from North Central College. I just got online here.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned last time, we've been working, or my work here has been around an ethnographic film project that focuses on two extended families in the highlands of Guatemala. Both families are indigenous Maya families, and both use small business and entrepreneurial endeavors as a means to sort of hedge against unstable economy and raise their economic status, improve their livelihoods. We brought students with us, 6 students with us on the trip over D term for a couple weeks of filming and interviewing. And since then, we've been involving students in both post-production, that is transcribing these interviews, translating them, and building them up into usable films. In addition to that, we're on a quarter system here, a term system, so in the winter term, I had a couple students on independent studies develop supplemental materials to go with these films, including annotated bibliography and a suggested reading list that would hopefully make the films very useful across a number of different disciplines, in showing sort of how entrepreneurship and small business operation can be an effective means for people to improve their livelihoods. So those are in process, and then in addition to that, for the spring term, in my course focusing on...
Somebody is...
Oh, is that okay?
Yes, go ahead. There was another disturbance here. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm teaching the course now that covers the culture area where the two families in this film are from, and we later in the course will be reading a contemporary ethnography on a variety of ways that Maya families and Maya organizations and communities try to engage the global economy as a means to improving livelihoods. And am I still here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
You're there.
All right. And so for that, I built into the research project for that course the option to students of writing a paper that explores small businesses and entrepreneurship in the culture area we're covering in the course. So they're doing the first assignment was an annotated bibliography and literature review. They'll expand that into a final paper and make a presentation on it at the end of the course. Additionally, one of the students helping out on the film project is using it. She's a teaching assistant in another course, and will be using some of the rough cuts of one of the films to explore intersection of family and small business operation. That's in a sociology class on families.
How do you, because I hear a common theme in terms of time and challenges of time. How do you manage that as a first-year fellow?
I had the advantage of being on professional leave in our fall term, so that gave me a really good opportunity to get up and running on this. I went and did a one-day workshop on film editing. We found that this was a bottleneck for us, was sort of converting the raw footage into useful material. So now I can lay in the basic discourses and interviews and then pass them along to the students who are more adept at the editing. And that has really helped. Still, it's a much longer process. I'd really hope to have something by now up there to share with other fellows so they could view. The films that just aren't quite ready. They still need me there to sort of introduce them to the students so they can understand what we're getting at. But soon I hope that, and by the end of the term definitely, we'll have one of those two films. I have a significant portion of one of them up there for you to view. But managing the time is a challenge, and film editing, as I'm learning it here, is really time consuming.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any questions for Matt from the community?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
I don't
Yeah, this is Dan Gillespie from DePaul. We were trying to get somebody before and we couldn't. Julia. Is Julia still there?
Yes, she's here.
If I could ask a question, please.
Yes, go ahead. Julia, can you hear Dan?
Yes.
Go ahead, Julia. Go ahead, Dan.
I was very impressed that you started out with the blog and then went from there. And having started out with that blog back in January 1st of last year, how many followers does your blog have now, and how has it grown over time?
I have about 300 followers. What really helped to grow the followers was and I've read this in books, is to offer something for free to give them an incentive to follow you. And so at about April of last year, I posted a free design every Monday. So it was Free Embroidery Design Monday. And so I made something that was, I made a file that was available to everybody. And then I would put it in my Facebook groups, and announce it through all of my social media channels. This is the Monday free design. And so a lot of people would sign up after that. So I tend to get more followers when people discover the collection of free files.
Great. Thank you, Julia.
Dan, I had a question for you, given your law background, and maybe you cannot answer this accurately, but what's your perspective on how you protect your ideas that you put on a blog?
That's a very good question. What you have is you have a waiver by disclosing it, and the question is how you can get around that waiver. You know, if you have an idea, like a trade secret, you want to keep that private, and that's the extent to which you can keep it private. Once you open it up to be seen on the internet, then it's a question of how you can create your privacy. And specifically how you can put something on a blog is something I haven't thought about, but I think that's something I should look into, and I'll be able to get back to you on that, Joe.
No, that'll be great. Thank you. And I think there's a common theme with a lot of not only fellows, but a lot of my students have the same concern on the question. And usually I'm saying, okay, go talk to your attorney or an IP attorney. I think it'll help fellows as a community if we have some, I don't know what, maybe the best answer is still go to see an attorney, but
yes, Joe, I
there's
agree.
something
That
that you
would be
can
the
come up with.
answer would be to see an attorney that knows something about IP, but the idea is that your ideas are copyrighted. But once you have that protection, but there's other protections you have as well, and that's why it's good to talk to the IP attorney.
Okay. Great. Are there any other first-year fellows who would like to chime in at this time?
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Matt Regis from DePaul University, the College of Communication. I can give and share sort of an in-process update. So we are in a quarter system here. So this means we just completed week 4. I am a first-year fellow. The class I'm teaching is called Public Relations and Advertising Entrepreneurs. So PR and advertising is our largest major in the college. It's listed as a special topics course right now. We didn't know how it would go with enrollment. We've attracted 24 students. The cap is 25. So it's doing really well. Lots of excitement around the idea of this class. It is set up as a hybrid class or a blended class. So if you're familiar with that model, we meet once a week face-to-face in the classroom, and then the rest of the time we complete assignments online. So the idea here is flipping the classroom, if you guys are familiar with sort of that movement. So the lectures and those materials I recorded in advance, so it's PowerPoint and then it's actually video, sort of webcam talking head of me lecturing, and then there's weekly quizzes to make sure that they're actually doing the lectures, and then there's also a Twitter-based discussion assignment where students are actually discussing entrepreneurship in the news, and that's been kind of fun too. And then it has them participate more outside of just the class, but more broadly with sort of the Twitter community. So the way we're using the face-to-face class time, and we're only in week 4, is we're going on several different site visits. We're trying to really leverage that we are in Chicago. It's a PR and advertising class, and there's a lot of major agencies and consultancies here in town. So this past week, we went to a startup boutique PR and advertising agency where the guy who started it is a serial entrepreneur, and so he's been through the process of growing it from, himself and a partner to selling it, working in a corporate environment for 3 or 4 years and tearing his hair out. And now he's started up his own business. And so it's him and 3 or 4 other employees. Some of them are DePaul grads. And one thing that really stuck out to me, Julia, going back to your presentation, was you said it takes grit. And the most interesting thing hearing from Chris this past week was he really gave them kind of the reality of what really goes into the less glamorous parts of being an entrepreneur. And, they got to see his face, and he talked about the realities of keeping his costs down. And, we were all packed into the conference room. And, he talked about long hours and working until 9 and, 8 and 9 o'clock at night. So I think it was good, because I think we do want to present a realistic outlook for our students on both the pros and cons of sort of this lifestyle. So the other thing that I would add that's been interesting is we're building up to a mini business pitch competition at the end of this class, and I have some judges that are coming in, and they're mostly from PR and advertising backgrounds. And what I've learned so far is they did concept statement papers, and I said, you can do your ideas on whatever you want to do that you're passionate about, whether it's for-profit or it's more social entrepreneurship and nonprofit. And a lot of the ideas that came back out of a class of 24, it's really not PR and advertising consulting or agencies. It is, a mobile app to locate street vendors in Chicago, which is pretty cool. And so we're talking about, well, can you incorporate food trucks into it? There's another student that wants to do a rabbit rescue / boutique, and again, not very familiar with rabbit rescues, and so we've been discussing how does that work, and she's talking about trends in Japan in this area. So it's been really interesting. I'm looking forward to sort of the feedback from the students. I am going to do sort of a mid-quarter opportunity for feedback to see how they feel about things, in the next week or two, and then try to adapt some on the fly from there.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Let's move on to the next agenda, because there are several questions relating to the year-end reporting formats. And I'd like to bring Clark into this discussion. Clark, would you like to start this off, please?
Sure, Joe. Thank you. And thanks for that great conversation that we just had. Those examples of your work as a fellow, are very interesting, and the fact that you're sharing them with one another is exactly what we're trying to create. It's exactly what we highly value at the Foundation, is your ability to share with one another the things you're doing, your successes, your challenges, and as we transition into this kind of more formal reporting topic, that principle really is a strong motivator. At the beginning of the year, when colleges received the grant, or when they kind of formally were notified, in the documentation regarding that grant, it states the project directors and fellows will provide interim and final reports of outcomes to the Foundation, including copies of any syllabi developed under the grant. And as you know, over the course of the year, we've been talking, with some regularity about our interest in you doing that kind of reporting at ColemanFellows.com. That's really the vehicle that we've created so that the work that you're experiencing and developing can be shared, not just with the foundation so that it sits in a filing cabinet here, but that it goes beyond that to the community that comprises us, and the other schools that are in the program, and also all those thousands of people that are visiting ColemanFellows.com. So we really cannot emphasize enough our interest in your work being posted to the site and shared broadly. So we had our interim reports due January 31st, and the expectation there was that people would go and post an article, a description of what they've experienced so far, and if you've had a syllabi, or perhaps the syllabi that's the initial basis for your class, maybe a before syllabi, the one that describes the class before it was modified through your work, we wanted you to post that. And so many of you have done that, and we appreciate that. And those syllabi actually get a lot of attention. Those are things that have great value, and people are looking for syllabi relating to the types of courses developed through the program. So similarly, as we approach the deadline for final reports, which is June 20th, we strongly encourage you all to contribute to the website. So post an update on what you've experienced so far. I think kind of what Julia and Matt have shared here this morning are great examples of things that can be written down and shared broadly. So whether it's presentations that we've seen today, or whether it's kind of the thoughts as you sit down and distill the experience you've had as a fellow, those are the things that we really want you to take a minute, log into the site, and quickly post. You'll also see there are opportunities when you review those articles to rate something. And we encourage you to spend some time on the site and read through what other people are reporting, and feel free to put an anonymous rating. It's kind of a 1 through 5 rating system, and if there's something that you really like, make sure you acknowledge that so that the broader community can be drawn to things that have good value. So again, the request here on our side and the expectation through the grant agreement is that by June 20th, fellows will post an update, and that's very simply by logging in at the site and clicking on submit an article or submit your syllabi. We really do hope that by the end of June that you've got a final syllabi that you can share, a syllabus that you can share. So many of you are teaching already. That means the syllabus is out there. Post it to the site and let other people experience what you're experiencing and understand your work. So for the fellows, for the first-year fellows and veteran fellows as well, we again really strongly encourage you to contribute to the site. For project directors, the expectation is a little bit different. What we're trying to understand is something that, if you've been with us for a few years, we're always trying to understand. What are the elements of the program that are working? How has the program changed your campus entrepreneurship program over time? And that's a little bit different set of questions, and some of them are a little bit more for our internal use than for the broad community within and beyond the Fellows Program. So as in prior years, we will be releasing a SurveyMonkey survey to project directors. That should be out to you on or before May 7th. So you'll have 6 weeks or so to work on that before it's due on June 20th. And it will be in a format similar to what you've seen before. If you're new to the program this year, it will essentially be a multi-page SurveyMonkey survey that asks a variety of questions that some of them are kind of yes, no, or rating scale responses, and others there's content, or there's kind of comment boxes looking for your feedback. So we are very interested in learning about how the program is working on your campus and the unique perspective that you have as a project director on how things are progressing. So again, all of this reporting is due June 20th, either responding as a project director to the SurveyMonkey report or posting to the website. Separately,
excuse me, Clark, if I can add just one thought here. every question that you would see on the survey has a text box, and the foundation would love to hear your backstory. So if you answer a question and it's a multiple choice answer, you pick one of the multiple choice answers. There's a lot more to that answer, and the foundation would love to hear the backstory of that. So please these are literally, you can type in 3-4 pages if you wish, but at least make an effort to be as descriptive as possible and give us the background details and the anecdotes that go along with those questions, because that is so the numbers and the story, and both are important. So I just wanted to interject that. Thanks, Clark.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. Maybe at this point we'll stop. Are there any questions from any fellows or project directors about reporting expectations, or questions and concerns about that process?
Let's see. Okay. I don't see any hands up.
No questions? Okay. Well, certainly feel free to contact Joe or myself or Rosa if you have kind of questions about that expectation. Separately, we did send out an email to project directors just in the last few days that is requesting an update on your budgets. And historically, we have not kind of, requested detailed budget reporting. The understanding in the Fellows Program is we're deferring to project directors to best deploy the funds that are available through the grant. However, we've had some limited experiences of favorabilities building up and dollars not being spent towards the program at a particular school, and so we want to make sure that that's not happening broadly. We want to kind of check to make sure that you are wisely deploying funds. And so we've put out a request here recently for project directors to just give us an update on whether there are unspent funds from this year's or any prior Fellows grants that are of material size, that are more than $1,000. So I know a couple of you have responded already, and thank you for your responses to that email. We ask that the remaining group please get back to us by May 6th so that we can kind of get a good read on the degree to which we're deploying funds against expectations. If, in fact, there are significant favorabilities that have built up over time, that may influence the amount of future grants going forward. In other words, if a program is to continue in the program, or a school is to continue in the program, your next grant may recognize the fact that you have a lot of unspent dollars already. So that's why we're asking. We want to make sure that as money is being granted by the foundation, it's being used specifically for the Fellows programming that you've kind of committed to. So that's another thing that you should see.
And Clark, one of the questions that has come up is when directors fill out the survey from the programmatic side, do they also need to do a separate final report on the budget? And could you talk about that?
Yeah,
please.
Sure. We have not asked for that in specific detail. So we don't have kind of a budget template for you to fill out. In the grant agreement, it does, state that you will give us, a good sense on programs and the way money has been expended. But I think pending the results of this request that's due back on May 6th, we will have potentially a little bit clearer direction on what we're looking for from a budget report. But clearly, it's our assumption that dollars are being expended as in the way that you stated they would be in your proposals. And so this little check that we're doing now is because an example has come to the fore where that was not the case. And so we're assuming that you're spending money as per the proposals. And therefore, in the final report right now, we're not expecting a budget report per se, But if we find out by May 6th that there are a lot of unspent dollars there, we may have to kind of change the way we've approached our budget report expectations.
Great, and some of the directors have expressed some confusion. I just want to make sure that there is no question. So if there is a question about this, this is the time to ask. Please go ahead and ask if you have any questions. Okay, no questions. Thank you. There are a couple of announcements that I think Clark had to make, wanted to make a couple of announcements, and I have a couple of announcements, and then we'll probably end on time today. So, Clark, do you have any announcements?
Joe, you might have to refresh my memory. Beyond the reporting, what was the other topic that you had in mind?
You wanted to, you posted to the site the next year grants.
Okay.
Would you like to announce that?
Sure, we'll be happy to talk about that.
How about if I chime in here on a little bit on this, Joe? Is that all right?
Sure, please, Mike.
So it's posted to the site that we have approved the next round of grants. It's going to involve 19 colleges, and 15 of them are existing, 3 are brand new, and 1 is returning. And one of the most exciting things about that is that we're seeing a number of institutions making additional investments to add to the fellows and the programs on their campuses, and that certainly seems to confirm, our initial thoughts of this being a really good way to help spread entrepreneurship across campus. I think the coffee cup today is just a really great example of the value and the potential of this program. The presentations today were just really very good, and thank you to everyone who presented. And you can just see the energy and that is in those presentations and the impact, and that's just great. And it just highlights so many of the good things that are happening on campuses. So the syllabi, Clark's, really underscored that. What a great opportunity to be able to share some of these things that are going on and help foster activity on other campuses. And Joe talked about taking the opportunities for the text box, and we're trying to make the reporting relatively easy, but that anecdotal data is it really is of interest to us, and I think it's interest to your colleagues. I'd surely want to, have you understand that, all of us write reports that we think don't get read, but these reports and the information that you are providing are really being read and used by the foundation and by the program directors to kind of monitor where we're going and where the hot spots are and what we need to do better. So thank you for the time that you're putting in on that. And we, in addition to the 19 colleges and universities, you've got 73 different faculty members and directors who are coming back and are being supported by the program. So you really can see a density here that's impactful. So thank you all for all your efforts.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. There was a question about contact information for Dan Gillespie. Dan Gillespie is a professor of law at DePaul University. There are a couple of questions about that. And he is a fellow. If you go to the website and search under his last name, and you will be able to get his information. And so we welcome you to connect among each other and talk and share ideas and help each other. I have another question coming up on a chat. Give me 1 second. Are the dates for the August conference set? Yes. Clark, you want to announce it, or you want me to announce it?
Sure. It's I think it's August 15th, 16th. It's a Friday, Saturday in mid-August. I think I've got those dates right, Joe.
Yes. So this year for the summit, we have decided to decouple with the CEO conference. It's being held in Orlando this year, and the Fellows Summit will be held in Lyle, Illinois, at the Hilton Complex, and there will be more details coming forward to the community. And it's August 15th and 16th, and it's sort of a day and a half, so we have a little bit more time to work through some of the details that we always end up running short on time-wise. Question from Greensboro, UNC.
Hi, Joe. Just I've had a couple of my fellows ask me when you might get the agenda out so they can start making their travel arrangements, plane arrangements, and I know that limousine service to the Hilton and Lyle, is Coleman going to set that up for us, or are we to do that? Anyway, if you could let us know that as soon as possible so we can start making our arrangements, that'd be great.
Yeah, Diane, sure. This is Clark. Yeah, we definitely understand the timeliness of that information. We're putting together the agenda at present, and we'll get that information out as soon as possible. I think we have one more coffee hour, that's coming up next month. We'll definitely have all the details by that meeting, and hopefully well in advance of it. One other comment I wanted to make, Joe.
Go ahead, please.
Is that, we did announce the grantees to continue on in the program, the colleges and universities. And by middle of next month, we will announce the e-baristas who will be continuing in the program. And through the application process for continuing in the program, we did receive some applications from faculty who are interested in serving as an e-barista, and we're evaluating those proposals right now. If you have an interest in being an e-barista, there's still an opportunity to do that. So maybe you were kind of holding off to wait to see if your school was going to continue before you jumped into the fray, but there is still an interest in receiving proposals from prospective e-baristas. The e-baristas and the cups of espresso are going to be continuing, an important part of the program. So if you'd like to be somebody who's leading one of those small groups, please get in touch with Joe or myself. We'll get you the application, and we'll be, very happy to entertain your proposal to serve in that role.
Great. Thanks, Clark. And we do have our next coffee hour on May 9th, and that will be only for the directors. And we may set up a agenda for that and primarily talk about year-end report formats, and then have the opportunity for the directors to share their thoughts, just like we had the first-year fellows share with the community. I think there's another question from DePaul. Do you have a question?
Oh, no, we already asked that.
Okay, Cal Poly then? I have a couple of hands up here.
No,
okay, if there is any other question, go ahead.
I have a question, Joe. Sorry, it's Diane again.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Diane.
On the May 9th meeting, is that for directors and assistant directors?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and the other question is, with the reporting that we're supposed to do, this year-end report, do you want us to work together with the assistant director to fill that out? So there's just one report, or is there separate reports we do, or?
No, it's one report per campus.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you're welcome. Webster has a question.
Yeah, Joe, with regard to the session in August, that's for new fellows only, is that correct? Can you clarify?
Yeah, Barrett, this is Clark, and yeah, the expectation is that all new fellows will attend. That is absolutely a requirement.
What about if any of the older fellows would like to attend?
Yeah, we're actually in the process of looking at numbers and confirming the degree to which we can expand it to the whole audience. Historically, we've welcomed any and all interested fellows, and so we'll, by May 9th, have clear guidance on that opportunity.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if there are no comments or questions, thanks for coming together as a community this morning for the coffee hour. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch with you, with the directors in the next few days. And then if there are any other questions or comments, please feel free to email them to me or Clark or Rosa. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you.